Have you ever practically walked out mid-sex? What happened? 30 years ago we were in bed naked and just about to make love and she curled into the fetal position, started crying and said no daddy. Muffin says number. I got dressed and we talked for a while. I recommended counseling and then I left. From what I understand she went back to Utah and got married. I hope she is well and her father rots in heck. Holy crap. That's so very upsetting. She kept insisting that I didn't need a condom. I'm infertile was among her excuses. Like I just met you on Tinder, I ain't raw dogging it. I just walked out. We didn't do anything. Yeah dude, anytime someone says we don't need a condom, that's when you know you do. My wife headbutted me when tussling around in bed. Didn't think much of it. Kept going. Switched position with me on top. She commented that I was drooling on her face. Thing is, I'm not a dog, so I wasn't drooling at all. Wiped my face with the back of my hand, which came back wet. Lights on. Blood all over the place. My nose was bleeding. I had bled in her eye. Not as much a walkout since we still went to sleep together, but sex wasn't on the menu for the rest of the evening. Thing is, I'm not a dog. That's exactly what a dog would say. We hadn't gotten very far, but I quickly moved down while she quickly moved up, and I broke my nose on her pelvic bone. She suddenly flipped the absolute frick out, screaming at me about ruining our night as blood gushed out of my nose. Mind you, this was like the second date. She continued to yell at me about how I needed to fix this, a total accident, and I just cleaned myself up the best I could and went home. That was really selfish of you to get injured while going down on her. This wasn't the guy's fault. I was bouncing on his dong and I accidentally bit my bottom lip really hard when I bounced. I started bleeding profusely on his chest and down my chin. We both stopped and ran to the bathroom. This is weird, this happened to me once. She still has a scar from it. Nearly bit the whole way through her lip. Yep. My boyfriend said he felt something hit his back, like it dropped and hit hardish and moved, so we stopped and I checked and nothing was there, so we continued. About a minute later I had my hand on my boyfriend's shoulder and I feel something move on my hand. I look and a huge house spider comes running over onto my face. I screamed, my boyfriend looked, he sees the spider, slaps it off my face, and the pair of us get up and nope ourselves out the room, throwing clothes on as we go down. Mate legs ruined our evening, lol. This is as hilarious as it is terrifying. She had warned me at the start of our relationship. There was an incident when she was 6. No penetration, but definitely traumatic. She had said that sometimes she just had to stop immediately and that I should just keep my distance if it happens. It happened only once. She said stop. I pulled out, sat on the far end of the bed and tried to calm her down from there. I'll never forget the look in her eyes in that moment. Made a huge impression on me. Frick rapists and frick child molesters especially. The guy kept asking if he could remove the condom, but I'm clean. I've been tested like 2 weeks ago. You can trust me. Yeah, right. After maybe the 6th or 7th time I got so POV I just up and left. People who say that have never had an STI test in their life. I had an ex say her last boyfriend's name in the middle of the act. I wasn't even insulted because I knew she was a drama queen and the way she said it was so over the top. Ooh, my goo, ex's name. You are amazing. Never stop in a way that no real life human speaks outside of movies. I wouldn't have been mad if it had been accidental. Mistakes happen. But the fact that she was doing it intentionally so she could have a dramatic scene straight out of The Notebook or some other garbage romance movie. God, that is so cringe. Dodge a bullet with that one. This guy kept hurting me. He had a particularly long penis and put me in a bad position. I asked him to stop 3 times and each time he would push me back into the position that hurt. So shouted stop or I am punching you in the throat, and I went home. I once regrettably dated a woman who was with me purely to upset her conservative parents. We were having sex in her bedroom and she began shouting as loudly as she could. I asked her to stop, but she said she wanted them to hear us. That was not my idea of fun, so I stopped. She sobbed like a child because I didn't want to take part in her weird fantasy. Old GF. I was down under and noticed a metallic taste. It was dark but I wiped my face and my fingers were red. Well, my dumbass asked if it was that time of the month. She said number. So I scoot to the bathroom and it looks like I'm painted for clown school. I get all cleaned up but I couldn't figure it out. Then it hit me, nosebleed. So I go back to my room, explain. She's crying because she didn't know what was going on. I calm her down and she goes to shower. 10/10 do not recommend. I one time got a nosebleed because of how forcefully my now GF slammed her pee into my face. This was like a week after we met. We've been dating for like 18 months now, and we still joke about it. He started to strangle me. I told him I didn't like that and he said he would stop, but his hands kept creeping up to my neck. Flipping terrified me. I wasn't sure what he would do if I stopped and tried to leave halfway through, but I sure as heck got out of there as fast as I could. The only guy I've ever ghosted after sex did this. He came from the kink community, so I guess he thought everyone was into choking. Nah dude, I'm claustrophobic and you're being scary. Had to stop mid-sex a few times in the past due to nosebleeds. Surprisingly, blood dripping down your face isn't entirely sexy. Straight up anime character here. Girl just started slapping the crap out of me. Slapped me soft. Like, you can't ask me. First, I colder told you no and saved us some time. He was my first Tinder hookup and kept trying to convince me that we shouldn't use a condom because he couldn't see M with one on. In my naivete, I didn't leave immediately but instead listed some options that didn't involve his condom-less penis in my vagina but could still potentially allow him to see M. He refused all of them and then tried to sneakily take off the condom without me noticing. That was my deal breaker, though in retrospect, it should have been much earlier, and I said, I need to leave. I calmly dressed and collected my things while he climbed under his covers and pouted. I blocked his number as soon as I was in my car. Yeah, I was with a girl after I had a fresh breakup. She was being really vulgar about what she wanted me to with her, but kept referring to me as her father. Not like in a daddy kink kind of way, she just kept calling me Gary, and well, that was this woman's father's name. We got started and then as soon as she said it again I lost the erection and then pretended to have chest pains and went home. She then spent the next few days messaging me about, must have been wonderful if I almost gave you a heart attack. I ended up blocking her. Somehow this is the second comment in this thread about somebody calling the other person by their own father's name. I actually did walk out. I was hooking up with this girl and she says something about her boyfriend while we are undressing each other and making out. I explain I don't need to be murdered in some cheating scenario. She explains it's her ex-BF, so we are back on, going at it for a few minutes and lining up for the landing when she says I'm going to turn on my flip so I can send him a video. Instant soft and I let myself out explaining I ain't getting shot. You seem to be very focused on this whole not getting murdered thing. I was going down on a former girlfriend years ago and I was really drunk. Well, the room started spinning and to the toilet I went. Poor girl thought it was her. I reassured her it was not. I just mixed too much alcohol. Sex before beer. You're in the clear. Beer before sex. You know the rest. X. That sounded better in my head. Not only that, I've fallen asleep. Our relationship wasn't the best, and when I'd get home she would pounce on top of me. As things went downhill, so did my energy, and soon I found myself sleeping during the more relaxed positions lol. I fell asleep after a blood donation. My boyfriend surprised me with a grilled steak and a glass of red wine. I was happy. We started making out, but maybe because of the blood loss, maybe the wine, I fell asleep. Not my proudest moment. He decided I wasn't really serious when I said no to anal. Newsflash butthole. I jerked away and then just got up and left. He tried calling me 4 or 5 times at night and left nasty voicemails about it. I never called him back and blocked his number. Then he sent me emails months later like nothing had ever happened. Nope, not going there. Someone I know had this happen to them. He didn't stop and she didn't get up. She still is blaming herself to this day. My ex-GF went with me to a minor league baseball game years ago and they held a ghost pepper wings eating contest during the game. Eat the lot and survive 15 minutes without water and you're the winner. I considered myself a daredevil in the day and signed up. I won overall and got my name announced and won some gear. My ex was pretty impressed and I felt like the man. We headed home after I drank copious amounts of water and washed my mouth out. I even brushed my teeth once we were home. We were finally alone and getting hot and heavy. Thinking I'm being a generous lover, I go down on her. Suddenly she yells and runs to the bathroom. Even hours later and my mouth feeling fine. The Scovilles transferred to her nether regions and caused her a good bit of pain until she took a shower. Understandably she was no longer in the mood. Became a very funny story for us both even after splitting up and remaining friends. TLDR. I participated in a hot wing contest and then transferred the heat to my ex-GF via oral. It wasn't technically mid-sex, but I was newly single and trying to sex away my sorrows on Tinder. After swiping for a while I linked with a chick and she was very forward and wanted to get down to business, so I gave her my address to come over. She shows up with a baby, like probably 3 to 4 months old, then proceeds to tell me she will set the baby up on the chair in the corner of the room while we do the deed. I had a microscopic studio apartment, so she might as well have just wanted to place the baby on top of my head. Long story short, I politely declined her services and deleted Tinder. Girl dead fished it. Just lay there. She was super into doing nothing at all. It was too weird for me and I couldn't get into it. Literally said, "So, okay, should we just stop? Neither one of us is going to get off, so I'm just gonna go." We didn't have sex again, but she continued to brag about how good she was. Yikes. She continued to brag about how good she was. I noticed a common theme when I was late teens to early 20s, that when I hooked up with a girl who had boasted about how good she was, the odds were higher than normal that she was not. Yes, older woman who was definitely wanting a younger man. It was a fantasy of mine too, so I'm on board. Anyways, we're getting busy. She keeps trying to put me inside her without a condom. I let her know I need to put on first, but she looks visibly disappointed. We get going and I crap you not as we're getting into it and I'm getting close. I pull out to change positions. She rips the condom off me and asks me to CM in her oar. I quietly pulled my pants back up and left without bar word. I felt disrespected. You were? Yes. My GF at the time was on top of me and I noticed a rather fresh hickey on her left breast. She had been in Florida for the 2 weeks leading up and just got home that day. Asked her what's that, and she lied horrendously, saying it was claw marks from her dog, shaped like human teeth. I told her to get off me, ripped off the condom and said goodnight. Sex is great, but it's hard to stay in the mood after piecing together you were clearly cheated on and then lied to about it. So I tipped my condom to her and said good day madam. Met a really beautiful girl at a bar. We hit it off and ended up back at my hotel. Everything was going about as great as one would hope. Started off with one of the best BJs I have ever experienced. Then I bent her over doggy and went in. After the first thrust, the most rancid stench just hit me, and I violently threw up all over her. After cleaning up, I slept on the couch. It scarred me. Dang. How does something like that happen? Was a one-night stand with a single mom. The baby shared the room and was sleeping in the same room, in crib. Couldn't see us. It made me super uncomfortable, but she was insistent. I was just going through the motions since the situation wasn't doing anything for me. And mid-sex she said, "Can we just stop? You're not really my type." I was so relieved that I broke out in a huge smile. Said something like, "Oh, thank God, you're not my type either. I just didn't want to be rude." Welp, since that's not a problem anymore, I'm out. I love the backhanded compliment if calling her super rude. It was after a date. We went back to his place. Foreplay had gone nicely, so we were continuing on to sex and he tried going in without a condom. I stopped him and asked what he thought he was doing. He stared at me super confused and was like, "Don't you want to have sex?" I pointed out the lack of condom. He said he was fine without one. I told him it wasn't happening without a condom. He said he didn't have any laying around. I told him I had some in my purse and if he didn't like the brand or whatever then we could go to the store and get some he liked. He said it's killing the mood, so I told him not to worry about the mood, got halfway dressed and left. When I was a few blocks away from his house I finished getting dressed and went to a store, picked up a magazine, bought a face mask, and some stuff for a bubble bath. Turned out to be a pretty nice night when I got home. I was with a guy I'd been on a few dates with, and as things were heating up, he asked if he could frick my butt. There was no lube in sight, by the way, not to mention I'd never done that and wasn't too keen on trying it with someone I wasn't in a serious relationship with, so I gave a kind but firm no. He got confused and was like, but I thought Arab girls only did anal so you don't lose your virginity and can still get married, and I was obviously like, what the frick, and then he got soft and cried a little. I drove home and he blocked my number by the time I made the 15-minute drive. Dodge a bullet there, I guess. I did walk out mid-sex after he asked what can I do to make you CM, and I replied eat me out, and he refused because he quote didn't do that because he was afraid of catching stees but not so afraid that he served his dong into my mouth. I used to date a guy who expected oral from me multiple times per day but said he would never eat me out. Needless to say, it didn't last too long. Finally met a guy I'd worked with for years. Phone based, and we flirted continuously since we met. Went back to his, had the most mind-blowing, desperate sex I've ever had. Just as we came to the grand finale, his kids walked in. He forgot to tell me he had them this weekend. We most likely woke them up. We probably woke everyone within a 5-mile radius. I won't lie. He went to put them back to bed and I got dressed and left. It freaked me out to think that they may have seen us. When I was a teen, there was this girl I was seeing. She made a big deal about wanting to blow me and to rock my world with her amazing mouth skills. I wasn't going to say no. I was a young teen person with a penis. Who says no to a BJ? She kept talking up how when we could get away from everyone that she would blow my mind. She kept to her word because after what she did my mind was completely blown. She took me behind a shed and before I knew it I was pantsless with her in position. She put me inside of her mouth and blew hard on my dong. Like blowing bubbles in your milk kind of blowing. I started to laugh, thinking she was joking around before getting to the real deal. You know when in P the girl looks up at the guy and has that sexy kind of smug look on her face while going to town on his Johnson? To this day I have no freaking clue how she managed to make that face while blowing on my dong like a didgeridoo. So instead of busting a nut I'm doubling over busting a gut. Or at least I was until I heard a bubbly gurgling sound going up all the way into my bladder. She blew air through my dong all the way up into my bladder from her failed blow job. It didn't hurt per se, but it was very unpleasant and confusing. I pushed her off of me and ran away while trying to redress myself. I avoided her for the rest of day, half out of fear and half out of embarrassment. It wasn't until hours later while trying to empty my bladder that I discovered what happens when you pee with air in your bladder. It sputters between urine and air once you empty it past being half full. Strangest series of events to happen to my junk to date. 0/10 would not sex again. Be honest, her blowjob did completely blow your mind. Yup, with my wife. While she was on top, I tried to sneak out a fart and instead crap the bed. Literally, there was no way to wrap it up and then rush her out so I could discreetly clean up. So I just said, babe wait, my stomach hurt. She laughed and said, oh is that what that was? I'll get you a towel. Love that woman. Your wife is a keeper. I had just come out of the closet a few weeks beforehand, met a guy at a bar, was sorta nervous when he invited me back to his but thought I'd go with it. It was one of my first sexual experiences with a guy. When we get down and dirty and he whips it out and tells me to go down on him, I'm still super nervous but excited and start sucking dong like I was born for it. Dude gets his phone out and starts playing freaking Candy Crush. I took his dong out of my mouth. Just silently dressed while he shouted questions at me, and left. When I was a teenager, a girl and I parked on a back road and she climbed in the back seat and got undressed. I got out of the driver's seat and opened the back door to the car, and as soon as I did I could smell her. It was extremely unpleasant. There was just no way I was going there, so I said, I think I see a car. Someone is coming. And I got back in the front seat, put her in drive and took her home. She was a very kind and good looking girl and quite popular in school, out of my league by most measures, but she had a stank bottom. I just couldn't do it. I was on my back, she was on top. Her cat took a crap on the pillow next to my head. We laughed but couldn't get back into the mood. I stopped mid-frick because the cat puked next to the bed. Laughed so hard. A threesome situation. Many years ago, I'm a hetero male, and it turns out I just don't care for having other dudes in the room. Too distracting. It's not an old-fashioned thing. I just prefer a one-to-one focus. Too distracted, I couldn't relax enough to perform. That's totally fair. I'm very much not hetero, but I'm not sure how well I'd handle trying to juggle more than one person's pleasure at the same time, and being watched sounds very performance anxiety inducing. I actually did walk out. It was the first guy I had sex with, or tried anyway, when I was like 17. Apparently he had erectile dysfunction, but he just kept blaming me for it and yelling at me, so I noped out of that one. The foreplay just felt super clunky. Can't quite put my finger in it. Like, she wouldn't even kiss me at the same time I kissed her. I'd kiss her and she'd close her mouth or just sit there. Then I'd stop in confusion feeling super rejected and turned off, and in this moment she'd start kissing me. Never experienced anything like it. Then she led me to the bed. She got completely naked and just lay there. I went down on her for a while. Then she sort of unenthusiastically went down on me for a couple seconds and then she ran to the bathroom. The whole thing felt so weird, I can't explain it. By the time she was back from the bathroom my pants were back on. I don't know if she was gonna starfish it, cause we never even got that far, but I had a feeling that's where it was going. I didn't walk out, but I was carried out, on a stretcher, by paramedics. Backstory for anyone interested, I have severe endometriosis, so sex can be agonizing at times. I felt a flare coming on but stupidly decided having sex would be okay. It was all going well until I suddenly felt a tearing popping sensation on my left side. The pain followed about 2 seconds later, at which point I screamed, then lost consciousness. Apparently I started to choke on my own vomit, so my partner called an ambulance. I was taken to the hospital, where I was informed that I'd had a cyst that had ruptured. It would have burst eventually. The sex just hurried things along. The doctor thought it was funny. So that's the story of the time my sexual activity was interrupted by a medical emergency. Went to see a girl. It was long distance. We had been on a few dates. She had invited me to her best friend's birthday party. She insisted I drive down and attend. Party ended with me and the girl in bed having smexy time. Took her to the edge of the bed and stood up. Mid-pump. All the alcohol decided it did not like being mixed. I ran into the bathroom, her bathroom, vomiting everywhere. I tried getting into the bathtub. That did not work. Ended up vomiting all around and some in the toilet. Pretty sure fell asleep there. I woke up in the bed and her drinking coffee in the living room. I apologized and said we'll clean up the mess and that it wasn't her. It was the alcohol. She said she already cleaned it up and relayed the night after I abruptly left. She came in after I passed out, carried me to the bed and then began cleaning the bathroom. She noted didn't want her housemates finding me naked in the bathroom with vomit everywhere. Looked like a murder or something. She said I missed every possible place to vomit. She understood it was not her and then offered me some water and crackers. I married this girl and we have 2 amazing kids and it's been 10 years. I am such a lucky guy. This is the most wholesome reply in the whole thread. I love it. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.